to recruit underage girls for sexual massages. Objection. If you know, I don't know what you are talking about. Is it an obvious lie that Virginia Giroux was a minor the first time she was taken to Jeffrey Epstein's house? Objection. So, we've already established that Virginia was 17, and we have established that her mother brought her to the house, and that she came as a masseuse, age 17, which is legal in Florida. Would Jeffrey Epstein's assistants arrange times for underage girls to come to the house for sexual massages? Objection. What are you talking about? Sure, would Jeffrey Epstein's assistants, I think earlier you mentioned, we talked about blank, who worked in the role as an assistant, or blank. Would Jeffrey Epstein's assistants arrange times for underage girls to come over the house for sexual massages? Objection. Again, I read the police reports, so this is all happening according to the police reports when I am no longer at the house, so I can't testify to what Jeffrey's assistants did when this kind of activity is alleged in the reports. So you don't know? No. Would Jeffrey Epstein's assistants, meaning blank, or any other assistants that you are aware of from the time you worked there, take nude photographs of underage girls? Objection. During what period of time? During any period of time you worked. Did you observe that? I did not observe any such photographs. Are you aware if they took those kinds of photographs? I am not aware. Mr. P, can we take a 5-minute break? Videographer, it's 2:58 and we are off the record. Recess. Videographer, it's now 3:10. We're starting disc number 6 and we are back on the record. Ms. Maxwell, was it an obvious lie when Virginia said she was sent to Thailand by Epstein in September of 2002? Objection. I have no knowledge of Virginia being sent to Thailand. But may I say something? There is not a question pending unless you want to clarify something. Did you want to clarify that? No, I just wanted to say something. Is it an obvious lie when Virginia said she was given instructions to maintain telephone contact with you while she was in Thailand? Objection. Can you repeat the question? Is it an obvious lie when Virginia said she was given instructions to maintain telephone contact with you when she was in Thailand? Same objection. I have no idea what instructions Virginia was given, if any, when she went to Thailand. So you know she went to Thailand? I know she claims she went to Thailand from having read it, but given that she lied about everything, it's hard to know what is true and not true. Did it make any sense for her to be in contact with you? Would there be any reason why she needed to be in contact with you? Objection. When are we talking about? When she went to Thailand? Same objection. In 2002, would there be any reason for her to remain in contact with you? Objection. Can you ask the question again, please? Would there be any reason for Virginia to maintain contact with you in 2002 when she went to Thailand? Same objection. First of all, I didn't know that she went to Thailand. I had had nothing to do with her trip to go to Thailand, and there would absolutely no reason for her to be in touch with me whatsoever. Did you ever have a phone number that was blank? I did. Was that a cell phone number? Yes. Is that your current cell phone number? Yes. I'm going to mark a couple of things here. Maxwell, Exhibit 11, photos marked for identification. The witness. Can I say something now? Mr. P. No. The witness. Will you let me know when I can? Mr. P. When she asks you a question. So, we've marked this as Exhibit 11. I'm showing you what's been marked as Exhibit 11, which is Girofa 003191 and 003192. Can you take a look at that document for me? Is that number that you just identified, the blank, as being your cell phone number? Is that your number on this document? It is. And do you know who authorised this document? I do not. Who is blank? I don't know who blank is on this document because I don't know what this document is. Do you know someone by the name of blank? I do know someone by the name of blank. Would he know your phone number? Objection. I have no idea. Why would Virginia be instructed to call Ms. Maxwell at your number on this form? Objection. I don't know what this document is. I don't know when it was done. I don't know anything about it other than I can see it has my name and number on it. So, blank, you said blank. Is he employed by Mr. Epstein? Again, it is not the only one blank on the planet. I understand. Do you know a blank that is employed by Mr. Epstein? Objection. Can you ask me the question again? Do you know someone by the name of blank that was employed by Mr. Epstein back in 2002? I do know someone who was employed by Mr. Epstein known as blank. Do you recognise the other numbers listed at the top of this document? I do not. Would you have known blank's cell number at the time in 2002? Objection. I have no idea. Can I ask you to turn to the next page, please? Do you know who blank is who is mentioned on this document? I do not. If you look on the bottom lines of the document, it says still in Thailand during your stay. If she is, she will be staying at the same hotel. Do you recall ever giving Virginia instructions to meet a girl in Thailand? Objection. I have already testified what I didn't even know, that Virginia was going to Thailand. So you didn't give her instructions to meet a girl in Thailand. Like I said, I didn't even know she was going to Thailand. Do you know whether Jeffrey Epstein would have given her instructions to meet a girl in Thailand? Objection. I cannot possibly tell you what Jeffrey did or didn't do. I wouldn't know. Do you know whether Jeffrey Epstein paid for Virginia to go to Thailand? Again, I wouldn't know if he did. Maxwell, Exhibit 12, documents marked for identification. I'm going to direct you. You can take a look at it, and then I'm going to direct your attention to a couple of pages. Mr. P, so the record should be clear. This exhibit, which is 12, is 375, 6, 7, 8, 9, 81, and then skips to 919, 920, 921, 922, 923, 924, 925 and 926. So I'm going to direct your attention to the first page. Have you ever travelled with Jeffrey Epstein when you've received a document like this from Shoppers Travel in your own independent travel? Do you recognise this? Objection. The front form, the front page, do you recognise this shopper travel form? Have you ever used them as a travel agent with Jeffrey Epstein? Same objection. You can answer. I don't recognise this. Turning to the second page, which is the 00376, do you see at the top of that document where it says Jeffrey Epstein, J. Epstein, 457 Madison Avenue, 4th floor, New York, New York? Is that an address you are familiar with that is Jeffrey Epstein's? I am. Do you see below that travel on Singapore Airlines, and you are going to have to go from New York JFK to Singapore Bangkok? Do you see that? Mr. P. What? The first entry is going to be on September the 27th, New York. Mr. P. I see it. Ms. Macaulay. I'm not talking to you. I'm talking to the witness. I see it. To Singapore, Bangkok. Singapore, Bangkok, I'm afraid are not the same place. Singapore, then Bangkok. I'm going to turn you to page, it's a little further back, 000919. And do you see at the top where it says J. Epstein, underneath Royal Princess, change mine? I do. Does this refresh your recollection that Virginia Roberts' trip to Thailand was paid for by Jeffrey Epstein? Objection. I can only testify to the piece of paper you showed me that has that information. I cannot testify from direct memory. When Virginia was travelling to Thailand, which the dates, again, I'm going to refer you back to the first page so you can see the dates. Can you identify a Bates's number, please? Blank, which was at the top, says blank. I'm going to refer you at the same time to the flight logs which were marked, the thicker document that looks like this with all the log entries on it. I'm going to refer you to page, Mr. P. That's exhibit number 6, correct? I'm trying to keep the record straight. Ms. Macaulay. I don't have exhibit numbers on mine. That's Jerifer blank. Mr. P. Hang on 1 second. Can you repeat the number, please? Blank. And if you will look on that page at the entry under blank blank, starting with the blank, and then it runs down to the looks like the blank, that first entry has blank blank, Jeffrey Epstein, and the initials GM. Do you remember taking a trip with blank during blank? Objection. Can you repeat the question, please? Do you remember taking a trip with blank during blank? That's the blank, and it looks like through the blank. I don't remember the dates. I couldn't testify to when we actually did it, but I do remember the trip itself. So you were travelling with Jeffrey Epstein and blank at the same time Virginia was headed to Thailand. Is that correct? Objection. I don't know. Is that right? If you look at blank on the document that I gave you, the first document, and then you referred to, if you look in the same as above lines, you will see the travel group with blank. Mr. P. Are you asking her to compare the documents, or are you asking her what her personal knowledge is? Ms. Macaulay. I'm asking if she can look at the doubts and tell me if she recalls that she travelling with blank at the same time this document reflects Virginia was in Thailand. I can't testify to any dates. I couldn't tell you. I can see a date but I can't tell you that I have a memory of the dates. I have a memory of the trip. I don't have a memory of the time. Who is blank? Blank. What is her address? I don't know. Does she live in the United States? She does. In what state? I believe in New Jersey somewhere. Do you have her phone number? Not memorised. Do you have the ability to get her phone number? Of course. Has blank blank ever asked other girls to come over to see Jeffrey Epstein for the purpose of a sexual massage? Objection. Can you ask the question again, please? Has blank ever asked girls to come over to see Jeffrey Epstein for the purpose of a sexual massage? Objection. Can you ask the question again, please? Has blank ever asked girls to come over to see Jeffrey Epstein for the purpose of a sexual massage? Objection. Can you ask again, please? Has blank ever asked girls to come over to see Jeffrey Epstein for the purpose of a sexual massage? I have no personal knowledge. What does blank do for you? She helps with my not-for-profit Ocean Foundation and any other related activities that I may have. Is she paid for by Jeffrey Epstein? No. She is paid for by you? Yes. When did you first meet blank blank? I don't recollect exactly, sometime maybe 2002, 2003. How did you meet her? I don't recollect exactly how we met. Did Jeffrey introduce you to her? I don't recollect how we met. Does she know Jeffrey Epstein? Objection. Can you ask again, please? Does blank know Jeffrey Epstein? What do you mean by know? Has she met him before? Objection. I can't recollect a time when blank. I've seen blank with Jeffrey, but you are not sure. I know they know each other. I can't testify to a meeting between them. Do you know where in New Jersey she lives? No. You don't know the city? No. How long has she worked for you? Sometime 2002, 2003. To the present? Yeah. Why do you think that blank might know Jeffrey? Objection. Because, I know Jeffrey. Have you seen them together? I already testified I have not seen them together, to my recollection. Is it your testimony that blank blank knows Jeffrey Epstein through the work that she does for you? Objection. I don't recollect, and I don't recollect how I met blank, and I can't testify to what blank relationship is or is not with Jeffrey. Have you ever talked to Jeffrey about blank? I don't know what you mean. In any way, have you ever had a conversation with Jeffrey about blank? In what context? In any context. Have you ever talked to Jeffrey Epstein about blank? Blank works for me, so it's entirely possible that in the course of conversation since 2002, 2003, that a conversation in which blank name would have come up is entirely possible. I provided you with, and I'm sorry, I don't know all the numbers, but the statement that was issued by blank that should be a single page, still in your stack of exhibits there. Mr. P, Exhibit 10. Did you authorise blank to issue that statement on your behalf in January of 2015? I already testified that that was done by my lawyers. So, did you authorise your lawyers to issue a statement on your behalf through blank in January of 2015? It was determined that I had to make a statement in the United Kingdom because of the appalling lies, and I've just thought of some new ones. Virginia's statement that I celebrated her 16th birthday with her, we can all agree that that's entirely impossible. I didn't meet her until she was 17. And other lies she perpetrated, that she had a diary, and we all know is a complete fake. That's not a diary. It was just a book she was writing that you helped sell to the press, as if it was a diary, when it was just a story that she is writing, a fictional story for money. How did you arrive at the words that were put in that statement? Mr. P, I'm going to object and instruct you to the extent this calls for any privileged communications between yourself and blank or another lawyer representing you. We're asserting privilege. If you can answer that without that, feel free to answer. So what your counsel is saying, and I will exclude any privileged communications you had with your lawyers. The question is, how did you arrive at the words that were put in that statement? If you can tell me without disclosing privileged communications. I'm not sure that I can. Is the statement that you issued true? What do you mean by that? The statement that you issued, the statement that's in front of you, is it a true statement? As in that Virginia is a liar? The words you put in there, is that true? Of course they're true. When did you become aware that the statement was being released? I don't recollect exactly. What day was it? No. I'm sorry, did you identify? I might not have caught it. Did you identify the name of the lawyer that you said you retained for purpose of this statement? I think blank. Did you pay that lawyer blank blank? Yes. Are you aware of any interstate or international transportation of a woman aged 18 to 28 for the purposes of prostitution? Objection. I'm not sure I even understand your question. I will go slower. Are you aware of any interstate, meaning between states, or international, meaning overseas transportation, of women aged 18 to 28 for the purposes of prostitution? Objection. Are you asking? I'm still not sure I understand the question. I will try to make it clearer. I'm asking you if you are aware of any interstate, meaning between states, or international transportation, meaning by flight or by car or by train, of women aged 18 to 28, their ages between the ages of 18 to 28, for the purposes of prostitution. Objection. In the world, I'm sure that happens. I read about it all the time. Not in the world. Are you aware of it in your experience with Jeffrey Epstein? Of any interstate or international transportation of women aged 18 to 28 for the purposes of prostitution? Objection. So, whilst I appreciate this might not seem like a smart question, what do you mean by prostitution? What are you asking me exactly? That would be sex for hire, any kind of sexual act that's paid for. Objection. Who's paying? What are you asking me? It can be paid for by anybody. It's a sexual act that's paid for. I'm asking if you are aware of any interstate or international transportation of women aged 18 to 28 for the purposes of prostitution. Objection. I have no idea what you are talking about. So you are not aware of that? No. Are you aware of any interstate or international transportation of women aged 18 to 28 for the purposes of having sex with Epstein where they would receive compensation of any type? Objection. I don't know what you are referring to. Do you want me to repeat the question? Sure, go ahead. Are you aware of any interstate or international transportation of women aged 18 to 28 for the purpose of having sex with Jeffrey Epstein where they would receive compensation of any type? Objection. I am not aware of what you are talking about. Are you aware of any interstate or international transportation of women aged 18 to 28 for the purposes of providing a massage for Jeffrey Epstein? Objection. So, you need to repeat that question for me. Sure. Are you aware of any interstate meaning between states or international overseas transportation of women aged 18 to 28 for the purposes of providing massage for Jeffrey Epstein? Objection. I think we can agree he did travel from time to time with a professional adult masseuse. Are you aware of any interstate or international transportation of women aged 18 to 28 for the purposes of providing a massage to any person other than Jeffrey Epstein? Objection. Again, I'm not aware of anybody that, if you are asking for specifics to someone else, I have no knowledge of that. So you are not aware of any interstate or international transportation of a woman aged 18 to 28 for the purposes of providing a massage to any person other than Jeffrey Epstein? Objection. I don't recall what any single person being on a plane for a massage with someone else other than Jeffrey for the sole purpose, if that's the question. I don't have any recollection of that. Earlier in your testimony, you stated that Virginia Roberts was 17 at the time you met her. How do you know she was 17? Objection. And, to the extent that calls for a privileged response, I'm instructing you not to answer. How do you know Virginia Roberts was 17 at the time you met her? Mr. P. Again, if you learned that information from your lawyer, I'm instructing you not to answer. I will follow my counsel's advice. Are you able to answer that question without telling me information you learned from a lawyer? I'm not. So you don't have independent knowledge that Virginia, according to your statement, was 17 at the time you met her? Again, my lawyer has instructed me not to answer. I'm asking you a different question. Whether you have any independent knowledge outside your lawyers that Virginia was 17 at the time you met her. Following the instructions of my lawyers, I can only remember or testify to what Mr. P. She is asking you a different question. She is asking, other than what your lawyers have told you, do you have any knowledge about her being 17? That's what she is asking. I can't recollect where I got all the information that I have that definitively shows that. Earlier in your testimony, I believe you said all of us would know that Virginia was 17 at the time you met her. How would we know that? I think you know that by her own dates, now that it was in 2000, so her entire tale of me celebrating her 16th birthday is clearly another giant falsehood. But she was 16 and 17 that year, wasn't she? Which year? You said it was 2000. The information that I have that indicates that definitively was something that is privileged, so I can't share with you. So you have privileged information that definitively tells you that she was 17 at the time you met her? I believe I do. How would we know that? What are you asking me? Earlier today you testified that we would know that she was 17 at the time that you met her. How would we know that? I imagine you have access to exactly the same information that I do. What is this information? Again, it's privileged, I can't share it with you, but you have been on this case for, I don't know, much longer than I have, and I imagine you have all the information that I do. Do you know whether your lawyers have produced documents from you that would show the age that Virginia was at the time that you met her? To the extent that calls for a communication that you had with one of your lawyers, I'm instructing you not to answer that question. I assume you, as part of the discovery process, had to collect documents that were relevant to this action. Is that correct? I did. Did you collect documents that would show that Virginia was 17 at the time that you met her? I think you have everything that relates that I had. Contemporaneously, per what you asked for, that I have that relates to that. Did you have a document that identified that Virginia was 17 at the time that you met her? You have all the documents that I had. I'm not asking what documents, I'm asking, do you have a document that identifies Virginia being 17? You met her. You have every document that I have. You have seen every document that I have. That's not what I'm asking. I don't recall every document that I gave you, so I don't know. I would have to look at every single document I gave you and then review it, but as I recall, you have every document that I have. What are you planning to show the jury that will prove that Virginia was 17 when you met her? Again, that's privilege, so I can't share that with you. If you're showing the jury, it wouldn't be privileged. So is there a document you have produced in this matter that shows that Virginia was 17 at the time you met her? Mr. P, she answered that question already. She said she doesn't know. She has given you everything. If there is a decision, assuming for the moment there is such a document, just hypothetically, and assuming for the moment that it is going to get produced somewhere, if it hasn't already been produced, obviously that would involve a waiver, a future waiver of the privilege. I think that's the answer to the question. Has the document been produced? Do you know? You have everything that I have given you, so if it's not in those documents, I don't know what to tell you. Your lawyers haven't withheld any documents. They are right here, you can ask them. I'm asking you. I don't know what... They're lawyers. When we were talking earlier about blank, I asked you whether you had ever given him a gift of a puppet. Did you ever, not as a gift, did you ever see in the presence of blank a puppet? Objection. Can you be more direct, please? Sure. Were you ever in a room with blank where there was a puppet? Objection. Can you be more specific, please, and can you bound it by time and be more specific, whatever you are actually asking me? Were you ever in a room with blank blank in New York, in Jeffrey Epstein's home, where there was a puppet? Objection. What sort of puppet are you asking me? Any kind of puppet. You need to be more descriptive. I don't know what you mean by puppet. There is hand puppets, all sorts of puppets. Is there any puppet you've ever seen in Jeffrey Epstein's home in the presence of blank? Again, puppet, you know, there is lots of types of puppets. Any type of puppet. If you want to give me a description of the puppet, I would perhaps be able to say. Any type of puppet. Can you be more detailed? Have you ever seen a puppet in Jeffrey Epstein's home in the presence of blank? My understanding of a puppet is a small handheld item you have in a circus. I have never seen that. Have you ever seen a puppet which is defined as a movable model of a person or animal that is used in entertainment and typically moved either by strings or controlled from above or by a hand inside it? Objection. I have not seen a puppet that fits exactly that description. Have you seen any puppet that fits any description? Objection. Can you re-ask the question, please? Yes. Have you seen any puppet that fits any description in the presence of blank blank in Jeffrey Epstein's home? Objection. I'm not aware of any small handheld puppet that was there. There was a puppet, not a puppet. There was I don't know, how would you describe it, really? I don't know how would you describe it. Not a puppet. I don't know how you would describe it. A caricature of blank that was in Jeffrey's home. Did you use that caricature to put the hand of the caricature on blank blank breast? Objection. I don't recollect. I recollect the puppet, but I don't recollect anything around the puppet. You characterise puppet. I characterise it as, I don't know, as a characterisation of blank. Do you recollect asking Virginia Roberts to sit on blank lap with the caricature of blank? I do not recollect that. What do you remember about the caricature of the blank caricature when you were in the presence of blank blank, Virginia Roberts and blank? Objection. I don't recollect the story as told by blank or Virginia. I don't even know who... I remember the caricature of blank blank and I remember blank, but I don't recall anything else around the caricature. Did you give it to him? I did not. Who gave it to him? I don't think it was given to him at all. Did he bring it? No. Was it something that was at the house? As best I recollect. Was it something that you saw at the house in advance of blank arrival? Again, I recollect the caricature. I recollect blank. I don't recollect much else around the caricature. Was there a party going on in the house at the time you recollect the caricature? Objection. You have to be way more specific. Do you remember? You said you recollect this caricature. You recollect blank being there. Do you recollect a party going on at the time of that interaction with blank and the caricature? Objection. I don't recollect a party. First of all, they weren't really parties. I don't recollect a party. I don't know what you mean by party in the context of that scenario. Who do you recollect being at the home during the time blank was there with this caricature? Objection. I only recollect myself with blank blank. I don't recollect anybody else. You don't recollect Jeffrey Epstein being there? Actually, no. You don't recollect blank being there? No. You don't recollect Virginia Roberts being there? No. It was just you and blank. I'm not saying it was just me and blank. You are asking me to do you remember? I only remember blank. I remember blank and the caricature, but I can't place the caricature and everybody else in the same context, the same time frame you are asking me. Blank, 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 blank. Objection. Typically, there is no typical because there is no standard procedure, so I can't comment or testify to blank blank. Do you remember them being in the house? Not specifically. Do you mind if I take a bathroom break? Videographer, it's now 3:51 and we are off the record. Recess. Videographer, it's now 4:04. We are back on the record and we're starting disc number 7. Ms. Maxwell, during what time period, I believe you said you met Jeffrey in 1991. If I'm correct there, and you've known him through the present, during what time period within those years would you say your relationship was the closest with Jeffrey? Objection. What do you mean by close? Sorry. I think earlier today you testified that at some point in time you considered yourself to be his girlfriend. Is that the closest you would say that your relationship was with him? And if so, what time period was that? Objection. I don't think I said I was his girlfriend. I would like to think of myself as maybe. I don't think sometime in the mid-90s. How close was your relationship? We were very friendly. Without going into details, was your relationship with him intimate? Yes. When was the last time you had contact with Jeffrey Epstein? What do you mean by contact? Either a phone call or email or anything of that nature. As best as I can recollect, when or sometime last year. So you haven't talked to him, like, for example, last week, you didn't talk to him. I did not. How many times have you had either direct or indirect, meaning in the presence of him or calling or emailing, contact with Jeffrey Epstein from December the 30th, 2014 until now? I'm sorry, can you just, either in person or by phone or by email from December the 30th, 2014 until present? I can't really characterise that, but not very much. There was a period in January when you filed your whatever you filed, where we spoke, and then since then, not much at all. Can you estimate how many emails you would have sent Jeffrey from the period of December the 30th to 2014 to the present? Not very many at all. More than 20? I really wouldn't be able to characterise it because it wouldn't be that many. I wouldn't know. More than 50? It would be on the lesser side, not on the more side. Can you give me a number? I honestly couldn't. I would be guessing. How many emails has Jeffrey sent you from the period December the 30th, 2014 to the present? I would say less emails, even less emails than I sent him. More than 20? I would say on the lesser side. Less meaning 10? I really can't recall, very little. When you spoke with Jeffrey in January of 2015, what did he say to you? I really couldn't remember exactly what he said to me. Did you talk about Virginia Roberts? I'm sure we did, but I couldn't recall the exact conversation. Does Jeffrey Epstein send you text messages? No. Do you send him text messages? No. How many phone calls have you had with Jeffrey Epstein since December the 30th, 2014? Again, very few. More than 5? Probably as many as the few emails that I would characterise, so just very few. I mean, a small number. Are you aware of any disagreement between your views about Virginia Roberts and Jeffrey's views about Virginia Roberts? Objection. I cannot speculate to his views. I can only testify on my views. Earlier you went through the series of lies. Have you talked to Jeffrey about the lies, and does he agree with you? I have discussed some of the issues with him. I can't remember specifically which ones. I just don't recall. I'm sorry. Do you recall him telling you that he didn't agree with you on any of those? I don't recall him saying that. Do you have a joint defence agreement with Jeffrey Epstein? I believe I do. Do you have a joint defence agreement with blank? I don't believe I do. Earlier today in your testimony, when I was asking you some questions, you said that you couldn't answer, but that Jeffrey Epstein could answer that question. Would Jeffrey Epstein be in a position to confirm or deny some of the obvious lies that we've discussed today? Objection. I can't possibly testify to what Jeffrey could or would say. I can't speak for him. Would Jeffrey be able to confirm or deny whether he had sex with Virginia Roberts? Objection. I can't say what Jeffrey would say. Has he discussed that with you? He has not. Would Jeffrey be able to confirm or deny whether he had a sexual massage from Virginia that first time she came to his mansion in Palm Beach? Objection. I cannot speak for what he would say. I can only speak for what I would say. So, as I testified, everything that she said about the first meeting didn't happen, so... Has he told you that everything about the first meeting didn't happen? I know it didn't happen because she puts me in that room. I understand you know, but has Jeffrey said, when you are talking about the obvious lies, oh yeah, that never happened? Objection. I can't specifically recall that. I don't know, but he has to agree with me because it didn't happen. Can Jeffrey Epstein, would he be able to confirm or deny whether he had sex with underage girls? Objection.